Hello, friends. Good
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening. How are you all?
Fine, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So, today's session, obviously, we all know corporate and economic laws that we have to focus on paper 4. This is one paper that we have to focus more. Why? Because we can easily score 60 plus, each one of us. Okay. We can easily score 60 plus. Why it is important? If we have done well in the first 3 papers, so however it has happened, it is not our worry now. So if we have done well in those 3 papers, then we can maximize our scores by scoring 60 plus in this subject, so that we can score very well in the first group. Or if the first 3 papers have gone average, it's okay, nothing to worry. We can always compensate in this paper. Why I'm telling we can score 60 plus? Because of MCQs. In MCQs, out of 30 questions or 30 marks, we have to score 20 and we can score 20. Okay, with the preparations that we have gone under, definitely we can score 20. In that case, descriptive part, balance 70 marks, what we have to score is 40 out of 70 we should. Okay, so that is the reason. So that is how our approach should be. For that, what all we have to do, we will obviously discuss. If you look into the RTP of this particular examination, 40 pages amendments they have given, right? So nothing to worry. There is nothing more very important in those amendments. Anyhow, it has been summarized and given in the R2R material that will be shared with you. Okay, so it has been summarized. If time permits, I'll also look into that in the last part of the session. Just we'll look into what are the important amendments that are applicable for us. So we'll start with this session. As usual, we'll not look into anything technical in this particular session. Our objective of this session is to understand what we have to do in the next 1.5 days that we have, right? 1.5 days, technically we'll have 20 effective hours. So those 20 effective hours we have to maximize. We have to use it to the best of our ability. So what we have to do, we have to be stronger than our excuses. We always know because of should always overcome by in spite of, right? There should not be any reasons, no excuses. We have to come above that, then only we can get success. And more importantly, whenever we say theory subject we cannot score, or whenever some of our friends, we will tell ourselves that we are not those kind of category where we get 60, 70, 80, we are 40, 50 category. No, there is nothing like that. Each and everyone can score more, right? Each and everyone can become a rank holder. Genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So it is the hard work, it is the effort that we put that matters. So next 1.5 days, we will focus on just putting our efforts, whatever we can, we are putting our efforts. So if we are satisfied with our efforts, at the end of the day, that is the success. Result doesn't matter, right? If we are satisfied that we have given our 100%. So how do we go about? First 10 minutes generic about the exams. Obviously we have already written three papers, so we know what are the things that have to be taken care. However, as a precaution, we'll just discuss shortly. And then next 40 minutes specific about this exam. What are the chapters that we have to focus on? What are the areas in those chapters that we have to focus on? And last 10 minutes, obviously, the conclusion, the general discussion, the final touch that we have to give. Again, no technicalities that we are looking into. It's the last exam of group 1. So give your best. Group 1 would be done. Four papers would be done. This question paper is divided into 2 parts. You have already written today's audit paper, so you already know MCQs of 30 marks, descriptive of 70 marks. So in 30 marks of MCQs, even though we have 2 parts, preparation is the same. No separate preparations for MCQs required, right? No separate preparations required. One important approach that we have to follow when we are answering MCQs is reading the question carefully. Okay, we have to be very careful while reading the question. The requirement might be different than what we have understood. So it's okay even if we read the question twice. Okay, it's even by reading the question twice, we can easily finish 30 marks in first half an hour. Okay, so it's possible. So read the question carefully, slowly, and answer. MCQs, be very slow, it's okay. Even how much ever slow we are, half an hour we can definitely finish. And second part of that, answering MCQs, you will get the correct answer. But while filling the OMR, please don't go wrong. Don't make that blunder. Carefully shade the OMR with the option that you know that you have selected. And for God's sake, please do not skip any MCQs. No negative marking here. Even if you do not know the answer, inky pinky pumpkin. Come what may, we are answering all MCQs. Okay, so please do not miss any MCQs. Coming to the descriptive part of 70 marks, read the question carefully. Why I say carefully here is, first point is a particular chapter. It could be a question from a particular chapter which you are not comfortable with. So looking at the keywords of that in that question itself, you understand that it is from that chapter and you ignore that question. But if you read that question properly, thoroughly, it might be the easiest of the easiest questions which you know. So read the question carefully. Second, you might know the answer, but by looking at the question on a gross manner, so you might miss out what is the exact requirement of the question. The question requirement could be different and your answer could be different. So for that particular purpose, to understand what is the answer that is expected, what is the requirement of the question, read the question carefully. And third one, in certain cases, you might not know the answer at the first step, but if you read the question carefully, there could be some hint in the question itself. So for that purpose also, we have to read the question carefully. So read the question very carefully, which is the question that we are answering. Yes, we have to answer 4 questions in the descriptive part, but in those questions that we are answering, it's not that all the questions that we're answering we are comfortable with. We will be comfortable or confident enough of at least one answer, one full-fledged answer, right? So that is the answer that we're answering first, because first impression is the best impression. So we should always choose that. When do we choose this? When do we decide this? Those 15 minutes reading time that they give, 15 minutes before the examination commences, when they give us the question paper, that 15 minutes becomes very crucial. Why? For these decision makings, when we have to answer which question, in which order we are answering. So that these are the things that we have to decide upon in that particular time. And format of answering, we have to focus on, it should be in this order itself. We'll write the provisions of the law first, then facts of the case, then based on the provisions related to the facts of the case, we will analysis, and lastly, conclusion. You have to conclude. Conclusion is compulsory. So it's not that I have to write everything in 4 different headings, under 4 different headings. Not required. It can be continuous. It can be continuous. The point is, ensure that don't write paragraphs. Always write in pointers. Always write in pointers. So these are some of the points that we have to focus. Presentation becomes very important. So we have to comply with these things, and don't quote wrong sections. Don't make that blunder. Okay, even if you do not know the section, just write according to the provisions of Companies Act. That's more than enough. But don't quote wrong sections. And if you are using charts, tables, etc., definitely use. No issues at all. So we can always use charts and tables, and focus on writing qualitative answers than quantitative. We are not here to fill pages, right? We are here to give the quality answers. So focus on qualitative answers and not quantitative. Utilize the reading time of 15 minutes, as I've already pointed out, and we can use the last page for our refuse. So why this is specifically given? Now, in those 15 minutes, when you have decided the order in which you are writing the answers, you might get certain points which is fresh in your memory. You would have just revised, right? So those points, you might fear that you might forget while answering later. So what you can do at 2 o'clock, exactly when you are allowed to write, first up, you can write those pointers in the last page of the question paper, where they're in the answer paper, where you can use it for refuse. So you can jot down those points so that when you're answering, you can always refer, ensure that you don't miss any of those points. So make use of those rough page judiciously, and don't jump into writing the answers as soon as you read the question. Frame the answers in your mind before writing. Simple language. You need not reproduce the Bare Act as it is. Simple language, but certain appropriate words have to be used as it is. You cannot write extra director. You have to use the word additional director only, right? So certain terminologies, those terms have to be specifically brought in. And obviously legible handwriting, the evaluator has to understand what you have written. So legible handwriting is required, and maintain normal speed. It's not that time will be an issue in this paper. It normally will not be an issue. So what is your normal speed? Maintain that normal speed itself. if you are in that normal speed, what happens? If you're in the normal speed, you'll get that flow also. You'll get the flow in which you have to write. So the best performance can happen when you're in the normal speed. And write the question numbers carefully, correct the question numbers, don't miss. These are the basic things that we should never miss. If we miss these things, it's a blunder, right? Then attempt extra question also. If you have time, attempt it. What if there is some grace marks announced in that? You will get that grace. So if paper becomes standard, if paper is tricky, nothing to worry, evaluation would be easy. At the end of the day, paper 4 will normally not be tricky. It will be straightforward itself, pretty straightforward. There might be 1 or 2 questions here and there, that's always there. But even if the paper is standard, evaluation would be easy. And don't stop writing until 5 p.m. First hour is very, very crucial. Why first hour becomes very crucial is, I will always suggest to first answer MCQs. Okay, first answer all the MCQs, so that out 30 questions are done, 30 marks is done. Then if possible, out of the first question, maybe one or two sub questions in that. So around 38 to 40 marks if you can answer in the first hour itself. And since those first question that you're answering is the best question, right, out of this 40 marks, 25 marks definitely you would have bagged in. So in the first 1 hour, if you have got 25 marks, the pressure is gone, because in the balance 2 hours, minimum that you have to get is only 15, right? So you'll have no pressure. So first hour is very, very crucial. Make the most of it so that you can perform well in the last 2 hours. And don't miss any stationaries, including calculators. Sir, for law Y calculator, it is required. Calculations might be asked, practical questions, 185, 186, limits, etc. can be asked. So please take calculators also. Okay, these are generic points. Now, in particular, in this particular subject, corporate and economic laws, we all know it's divided into 2, corporate law and other laws. In corporate law, we have different chapters which we can cluster around based on the weightage that is given in the examination. So first 3 chapters, very important, big chapters, directors, meetings, and managerial remuneration, 25 to 30 marks. Okay, can we ask? Yes, it's important. These 3 chapters are very important, 25 to 30 marks. But at the same time, very time consuming. It almost takes 50% of our entire time when compared to the other chapters. 50% it might take. So very time consuming, and obviously it is standard. So we have to be careful while revising in the next 1.5 days. We should not get carried away by these 3 chapters. We cannot take additional time for those 3 chapters. Then inspection, inquiry, investigation, prevention of oppression, mismanagement, compromise arrangement. 3 simple chapters. What is there in these 3? Procedures. Only procedures. Only procedures can be asked in the exams also. 10-15 marks. Easily we can score 7-8 marks here if we are thorough with these provisions. Okay, so focus these 3. Don't miss these 3 chapters. Then NCLT, special code, foreign company, miscellaneous provision, removal of name, dormant company, punishment of fraud, registered valuer, nidhi companies, all small discussions. But they're very, very simple and easy. We have to just read through them once, right? If we just read through them once, 20 marks will be asked. So these are the areas that we can maximize our marks, where we can score more. And winding up is easy. It's easy to understand, easy to answer also, but it's very, very lengthy. From where they'll ask, that could be difficult to understand because it's very lengthy. At the end of the day, only 5 marks would be asked. Then drafting resolution, there is a chapter, but of late no questions is being asked. However, we can always look into just sample resolutions for our reference. In economic laws, very important, IBC and PMLA. Any chapter we can miss, but these 2 chapters we have to read. We have to revise. 15 to 20 marks, very important. Syllabus is also limited there. 15 to 20 marks, we can easily score there. And next is SEBI, LODR and FCRA. It's time consuming a little bit, but important, 10 to 15 marks. Right? When compared to first 2 chapters, it's time consuming. Whereas FEMA arbitration conciliation, very, very time consuming, 5 to 10 marks would be asked. So that should be our order of reading. Then at the end of the day, there is nothing that these topics are not important. Nothing can be skipped. All topics are important, right? Having said that, in each individual chapters, which are those topics that we have to compulsory focus on, right? First chapter, appointment and qualification of directors, 2 hours we can spend. So we have divided the 20 hours that we have, we can divide it accordingly. So we can spend 2 hours. minimum and maximum directors in case of private company, public company, OPC, etc. Different limits, directorships, and DIN procedures, procedural aspects, application for DIN, surrender of DIN, cancellation of DIN, etc. Rotation and retirement of directors, reappointment of retiring director provision. Then 160 appointment, the procedure very important. Additional director, CV director, alternate director, nominee director. Certain small differences are there. In some cases, board meeting resolution is required. Some cases, only board resolution is sufficient. What happens in case of vacancies, etc. Then women director, applicability, vacancy. Same case, applicability of small shareholder director. Then comes independent director. The conditions of independence, very important. Conditions of independence. And nowadays, since there is an amendment with regard to data bank, independent directors data bank that they have brought in newly, and there is a test there. For that, certain exemptions are given, and there are lots of changes they are making. Even for this attempt, there is one small amendment that has happened. So those independent data bank related provisions also important. And then separate resolutions for appointment of each director. We cannot club. Then disqualification, very important. There are various lists of disqualifications, 164, 167, vacation, list of areas where the director's office can be vacated, resignation procedure, 168. Procedure is important. Same way, removal procedure is important. Okay, so 160, 168, and 169 procedure becomes very important in the first chapter. Come to the second chapter, meeting of the board and its powers. Again, we can spend 2 hours there. What are important here? Frequency of board meeting, a gap between 2 meetings. Especially, there is a separate limit for a separate criteria for Section 8 company, small company, OPC, private limited, which are startups, etc. Right? So those things can be asked. Then video conferencing. Now video conferencing, that procedure that they have to look into, the points that have to be considered. Earlier, Rule 4 was important. Now Rule 4 has been omitted, has been removed. Now there is no restriction on items that can be discussed in video conferencing. Anything, everything can be discussed. Then quorum for the board meeting, circular resolution, procedure again, procedure very important. Powers of the board, Section 179, very important. Certain powers can be delegated also in that. Then restrictions of the power, Section 180, those 4 cases where special resolution is required. Then contribution to charitable fund, political party, NDF, National Defense Fund, 181, 182, 183. Again, in 181, there is limit, 182, 183, no limits. But 182 requires board meeting resolution, certain specific points that we have to consider. 185, loan to director. 186, LGSI. Very, very, very important. 185, loan to directors. There are 3 parts that can be divided it into. Then LGSI procedure. 186, there are 2 procedures, one with when limit exceeded, one when limit not exceeded, right? 2 procedures we have to focus on. Then related party transactions, 188, obviously the procedure, in some limits also there. That we have to consider. And disclosure of interest, 184, 1 general interest, 184 to specific interest, those 2 cases. And committees, there are 4 committees in companies in this particular chapter, 177, 178. Audit committee, nomination remuneration committee, stakeholders relationship committee, and vigil mechanism, applicability, constitution, those parts, very important. And we should not get confused, because in LODR also again we have the same committees. Right, so we should not get confused. Then non-cash transactions, 192, related to the board of directors, etc. Then third chapter, appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel. We can spend 1 hour there. What all we have to focus on? Definition of managing director, manager, their tenure of appointment. Under 196, apart from 164, there are additional disqualification conditions that has to be focused on. Then mode of appointment, whether it is Schedule 5 appointment or central government. If it is Schedule 5, again, Part 1 has certain qualification requirements. We have to look into. These are appointment related. Then remuneration. In case of managerial remuneration, inadequate profits, that effective capital becomes important. Effective capital and limits in Part 2. Effective capital, now it's for both managerial personnel as well as other directors. Right, so 2 limits are given. So those 2 limits also are important. Then compensation for loss of office, separate discussion is there. Appointment of KMP, applicability, the applicability part we have to focus on, which are the companies they have to have compulsorily KMP, and secretarial audit applicability, not beyond that. Okay, these are the 3 chapters. Then inspection, inquiry and investigation, 1 hour we can spend, and it's worth spending because we can easily score here. Routes of inspection. 206 has various routes that we have discussed. So go through that routes, the ROC inspection as well as central government can directly. Then types of investigation, 210, 212, 213. Procedures, we have to focus there. Powers of inspectors, power to seize the books. What is the time limit for which they can hold those books which we have seized? Power to investigate related company, and what are the follow-up actions that they can take. And one more investigation that we have is investigation into ownership, 216. Restriction on securities, they can restrict for transfer. What is the time limit up to which they can restrict on transfer of securities? Freezing of assets, time limit, and protection of employees against action, suspension, etc. Legal advisors and bankers immunity. Those are the points that we have to look into. Okay, prevention of oppression and mismanagement, 45 minutes, a simple chapter. Who can apply for prevention of oppression mismanagement? What are the orders NCLT can pass? That's all. Then second part of that chapter is class action suit. Again, who can apply for class action suit? Against whom can it be applied? And what are the orders NCLT can pass? Then comes compromise, arrangement, amalgamation, 45 minutes, pure procedural based. Right? What are the procedures for compromise and arrangement? 10-step procedure that we have discussed. Same procedure applicable for compromise and arrangement applies to first method of mergers and amalgamation, also normal merger, 232 merger. In mergers and amalgamation, we have 6 methods. So one normal merger, same procedure, but has to be complied in 2 companies. That's all, the only difference. Then fast track merger, 233. Who can go under fast track merger? Foreign company, 234, same, mutatis mutandis. Then transfer of shares, 235. Purchase of minority shares, 236. 2 separate scenarios, identify or understand the difference. When can we go under 235? When can we go under 236? And last one, central government in public interest, 237. Next is NCLT and NCLAT, 15 minutes, a small chapter, might be asked, might not be asked. So just go through. NCLT orders, what are the orders NCLT can pass? NCLAT can take orders from NCLT, which are the orders that it can take. It can also take from consumer protection, etc. So appeal against NCLT or NCLAT, where can we apply, and what are the time limits that we have. Then next chapter is companies incorporated outside India. Very important chapter. 30 minutes we have to spend here. What is that we focus on? First we have to focus on definition of foreign company. On that only questions would be asked, and electronic mode. Foreign company definition, list of what constitutes electronic mode is specified. There is one small amendment that has happened this time, anyhow we'll be discussing that. And then focus on other small aspects like annual returns, filing of documents, prospectus, etc. Okay, so these are the companies incorporated outside India that we have to focus. Then compounding of offenses, adjudication and special courts. 30 minutes that we can focus, that can spend here. Types of offense, 2 types, compoundable, non-compoundable. What is the difference? Non-cognizable. Normally, all offenses are non-cognizable except certain things. When it will be cognizable? Then mediation and conciliation panel. What is that? And special court related. So in some cases, special court related questions can be asked in the exam. Miscellaneous provisions and topics, 1 hour 15 minutes. Even though it says miscellaneous provisions, certain small topics are there which can be important. Examination questions. Removal of name. Removal of name, procedure is important. Procedure for removal, strike off. Restriction on application. In certain cases, you cannot apply for removal. And appeal to NCLT. Orders passed regarding strike off, appeal to NCLT possible. Then punishment for fraud. What is the punishment? 2 scenarios are there. Limit 10 lakh and above, other than 10 lakh with no public interest. Below 10 lakh with no public interest involved. So 2 types of penalties, and general penalty where no penalty has been specified in the law. Then dormant company. In that, significant accounting transactions. Procedure for application of dormant company. In some cases, you cannot apply for dormant company, ineligible cases. And how can we reapply for active status? So these are the points that we have to look into. Registered valuer, of late they are asking questions. In November 22 also they have asked one question. Who can act as registered valuer? Eligibility and qualification. Penalty also they are asking with regard to registered valuer for false certifications, etc. Then Nidhi company, April 22, there was huge amendments that has happened. because of which it became very important. November 22, there was a question asked. So I don't know whether again they'll ask in May 23. So Nidhi company, incorporation related, minimum members, net owned funds, term deposits, share capital, dividend, deposits, loans, directors, and returns. These are the specific points that are given in Nidhi rules. Apart from that, normal provisions of Companies Act will apply. These are the separate provisions that are there. Anyhow, those amendments again has been brought in the summary material. Then winding up, 1 hour 15 minutes we can spend. Types of winding up, compulsory, voluntary, right? When can the companies be wound up? There is a list specifically given. When can the companies be wound up? Who can file the petition? Company, contributories, government, etc. Filing of statement of affairs, audited accounts. And there are two committees there. One is winding up committee, second one is advisory committee. What are their roles? Who will constitute? At what time it will be constituted? Stay of suits. As soon as winding up provision starts, stay of suits. What are the contents of the liquidator's report, liquidation report prepared by the liquidator? What is that concept called set off? What is that called? Upon winding up being approved, who can make the share calls? And if a person living in India, rest of person living in India, order of priority of payment, very important. Practical question can be asked here. Order of priority of payment, concept of preferential creditor and overriding preference. Right? These three becomes important, and fraudulent preference also. Fraudulent preference, time limit. We can go back till what time period, and also transfer not in good faith. Those two are interrelated. Fraudulent preference and transfer not in good faith. Lastly, drafting resolutions. You can spend 15 minutes, not more than that. What you have to look into, just refer CAPS material. There are certain hints given. Focus on those hints and some sample resolutions that are there. Okay, not beyond that. Okay, these are the chapters that we had in corporate law. Next, economic laws. SEBI Act 1992 and LODR regulations, 1 hour 30 minutes. What are the constitution of SEBI? Removal of members. How can the members be removed? Powers and functions of the board, SEBI. Penalties that can be levied. That is important. Of late they are asking. Adjudications and appeals related provisions. Insider trading. What is price sensitive information? Who is an insider? What is insider trading? And obviously penalty for insider trading. So these are the points that is asked from the main SEBI Act. Coming to LODR, composition of board, yes, important, but more important is committees. Okay, there was an amendment that was there, and again, question was asked in November 22. It was asked, however, it might become important. So that has been again summarized in the summary material. Audit committee, nomination, remuneration, stakeholders relationship, and risk management. Disclosures regarding related party transactions, proceeds of IPO, BRS, change in directors, etc. CEO, CFO certification, quarterly and annual compliance. There are some amendments that are happened earlier, last year. Okay, so these two becomes important in that chapter, LODR. Then comes FEMA, 1 hour 30 minutes that we can spend. Important is definition of resident in India. More number of questions are focused there. Definition of person of Indian origin. Restriction on dealing in foreign exchange and foreign securities. Capital account transactions and current account transactions. Very, very important. We have schedules and lists there. Go through those lists without fail. And acquisition and transfer of immovable property outside India. Export of goods. Then adjudication and appeal related. Where can we appeal? So those provisions look into. Then import, small discussion. ECB, external commercial borrowings. Of late, they can ask small questions in that. There is one small amendment that has happened applicable to this exam. Okay, so ECB related. And very important, ODI. There was an ODI regulation which they have completely revamped, which is applicable for us, for our exams. Okay. Anyhow, if time permits, I can discuss. Else, I'll just give a brief. Nothing to worry much, because at the end of the day, only one question will be asked from FEMA. Okay. So if we spend some time on that overseas regulations, overseas investment regulation, most probably this time they can ask from that chapter, that discussion itself. So if we can spend a little more time, then we can. So that would be important, overseas investment. Then Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, half an hour, but easily we can score. Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Foreign contribution. What is foreign contribution? The definition. Prohibition. Certain cases it is prohibited. List. Certain cases it is allowed. But wherever it is allowed, you have to take registration or prior permission. So how to take registration? How to take prior permission? In some cases, contribution from relative, you have to make intimation. In that, there is some amendment that has happened this time. Look into that. Then power of central government to prohibit and restrict foreign contributions, utilization for administrative purpose. There is a limit specified there. Only up to that limit you can utilize for admin purpose, and adjudication and appeals. Next that we have is Arbitration and Conciliation Act. So with regard to arbitration and conciliation, requirement for arbitration agreement, which are the matters that can be referred to arbitration? Matters which cannot be referred to arbitration. Those are important. Arbitration proceedings, types of awards that we have in arbitral proceedings, appeals, only in some cases appeal is permitted, cost, who will bear, and conciliation also, matters that can be referred. Difference between conciliation and mediation that is there at the end, that can be asked in the exam, and obviously conciliation proceedings. Prevention of money laundering, PMLA, 45 minutes, very, very important. Definition of money laundering, proceeds of crime, property, scheduled offense. These are important definitions. Payment system, here and there they can ask. Punishment, we have to know what is the punishment for money laundering. Then certain banks, financial intermediaries, financial institutions and intermediaries have some obligations to report in certain cases. What is suspicious transaction, cash transactions reports, and attachment of properties, provisional attachment, later it will be confirmed, time limit, once it is attached, what is the time limit? So those adjudication proceedings have to be focused on. Last chapter, IBC. 1.5 hours we can spend. Definition of corporate guarantor, financial and operational creditor, corporate debtor. These are very important. Registration of insolvency professional. How can he be registered? Then starts the important aspect, corporate insolvency resolution process. So application, who can file? Financial creditor, operational creditor, corporate debtor. 7, 8, 9 and 10 sections. Who cannot apply? Who cannot apply? There are ineligible cases. Then time limit to complete. One-time extension can be given. Moratorium order would be passed. Initially, IRP would be appointed by the NCLT itself. He will constitute the committee of creditors. First meeting, RP will be appointed. Then, in certain actions, RP can conduct only with prior approval of COC. So, which are those? List of the actions that can be taken only with prior approval of COC. Then there is something called information memorandum that would be circulated. Based on that, resolution plan would be prepared. Right? If that doesn't go well, if the resolution process doesn't go well, liquidation process. Right? In case of liquidation process, again, we have preference transaction, order of priority. Here, that order of priority that we have in winding up, order of priority that we have here, there is a small difference. Right? So both cases, practical questions can be asked. And we have something called fast track CIRP. Who all can go under fast track CIRP? The only difference here is the time limit. Time limit is half. Next, PPIRP. It's a recent provision, right? So it becomes important. Who can go under PPIRP? Time limit is different. Certain exemptions, certain procedures are also different. Here, resolution plan is ready-made. It's already ready before going to the before initiation of a resolution plan process. Then voluntary winding up procedure. Again, we have to look into. Okay, these are the focus areas. After all these, maybe as a last minute revision, the date of the exam on Tuesday, what we can do is we can revise all the penalties of all the chapters. At the end of every chapter in the CAPS material, we have summary of penalties. Go through those penalties. Then we have specifically given wherever special resolution is required, wherever board meeting resolution is required. Those lists have been specified there. So those resolutions look into limit and given under 177, 178, audit committee, applicabilities, all limits, right? Those things, so that everything would be fresh in our memory. And RTPs of November 22 and May 23, just turn the pages, questions, those multiple choice questions and descriptive questions. Just go through those questions. That would be sufficient for us. Okay, so what we should do is I'll just show you that material. Anyhow, it will be shared, nothing to worry. So this RTP of May 23, it contains amendments from 1st of May 2021 to October 2022. So only April 22 to October 22 would, or May 22 to October 22 would be the amendments that are specific to your exams. But why are they giving the earlier ones? Because study material is not updated. That is the reason they are giving the complete amendments. So in our CAPS material, those things are already updated, right? So first part in this summary will be specific to our exams. So which are in bold and italics are specific to our exams. So in first chapter of appointment and qualification, one small discussion, when directors are appointed, you have to give consent, DIR2, right? In that, if he is national of a country which shares land border within India, neighboring countries, then he has to take clearance from Ministry of Home Affairs. That declaration has to be, that security clearance certificate has to be attached along with the consent. That person who wishes to become a director in India, who is a citizen of neighboring countries, land border, who shares land border with India. Same way, this is at the time of becoming director. Same way, if you are applying for DIN, in DIN application also, you have to attach that security clearance. Then with regard to independent directors, now independent directors data bank, once you are registered within 1 year, you have to pass that test. If you do not pass that test within 1 year, they'll remove the name. If it is removed the name, if they have removed the name, then you can restore the name by paying 1,000 rupees. It's a new provision that they have given, 1,000 rupees, and they will restore, but 2 conditions: that his name will be shown in a separate restored category. It will not be in the normal database, in a separate category for 1 year, within which he has to pass the test. If it is passed, then it will be transferred to the normal register. If doesn't pass, if he fails to pass within 1 year, then removed from the data bank itself. Now he cannot pay 1,000 and restore it. He has to apply afresh. Okay. This is FEMA amendment. Most of these amendments are related to FEMA only, major amendments. ECB only all-in cost they have changed. All-in cost benchmark till now it was LIBOR plus certain basis points. Now they have removed LIBOR references. So those only couple of points are there. Just focus on that. Then this is what I was talking about. Overseas ODI has been substantially revamped. What they have done is they have brought 2 things. One is Overseas Investment Rules 2022, Overseas Investment Regulations 2022. Regulation is compliance part, reporting aspects. Rules talk about the conditions. Okay, in these rules, again, these are the definitions focus on, but what mean non-applicability can be important. Look into this, for whom this is not applicable. Then come to the main part here. Now, it has been divided into 5 different categories. Okay, the entire rule is divided into 5 different categories. So we have 5 schedules. First category is ODI by Indian entity. ODI by Indian entity. Indian entities, body corporates, etc. ODI by Indian entity. What are the rules? Go through Schedule 1. That is what they say. Schedule 1. So it's been like this only. It has been specifically mentioned here. So it's been arranged in the order itself. So wherever it is, Schedule 1 is just before ODI of Indian entity. Same way, OPI, Overseas Portfolio Investment. If you are investing through portfolio by Indian entity, then Schedule 2. Portfolio, Schedule 2. That is for first 2 schedules for Indian entity. Then resident individuals. Individuals, if you have to invest, come to Schedule 3. Manner of making overseas investment by resident individual. Here, they're not bifurcating between ODI and OPI. They're directly selling overseas investment. In first 2 schedules, they said ODI, OPI. Here, they're just telling OI. Right? So whether it's ODI or OPI, it comes under Schedule 3 only for resident individuals. 4th one is for other than Indian entity and resident individuals like trusts, societies, mutual funds, alternate investment funds, venture capitalists. For them, Schedule 4. Okay, other than Indian entity and resident individuals. Last one is not technically a overseas investment, but investment by person resident in India in IFSC. That is also considered as foreign investment now. Investment in IFSCs. Okay, so for that, they have brought in Schedule 5. These are the 5 schedules that are included in this particular rules. Okay, so whatever ODI rules that we had in our material, don't read that. This is what is applicable for your exams. That has been brought in. So this is for ODI rules. Then same way we have ODI regulations. That regulations, not much. Regulations is very small. Reporting aspects. What are the cases that has to be reported, etc. The obligations related reporting requirements that they have brought in. In FCRA, intimation of receiving foreign contribution from relative Earlier, it said that if you receive more than 1 lakh, you have to intimate to central government within 30 days. Now they are telling increase that limit to 10 lakh. Up to 10 lakh, no intimation required. Only in excess of 10 lakh, time limit extended to 3 months, not 30 days. So 10 lakh, 3 months. And with regard to orders passed by competent authority, you can apply for revision of the order. So with regard to online application, now they have made it online. So with regard to that online application, there are some FAQs given. Okay, so go through in case same question is asked, it's easy for us to answer. Not much, 9 FAQs are there. So just go through those FAQs. And lastly, IBC related, couple of amendments important. With regard to committee meetings, COC meeting, earlier, the committee of creditors, RP, has to convene the meetings of the creditors if the members of the committee, 33% of voting rights, members having 33% voting rights, if they ask for the meeting, then only he had to convene. Now, what are they telling is, if it is 33%, he shall convene. If it is less than 33%, he may convene. So he still has the power to convene. Earlier, that power was not there. So they have brought in that power to convene the board committee meetings. Okay, that is one amendment. Then, related to voluntary liquidation, insolvency professional within 7 days of his appointment as liquidator intimate IBBA. Earlier, it was 3 days. When insolvency professional is appointed as liquidator, he has to intimate to IBBI. Earlier, it was 3 days. Now they have extended it to 7 days. Amendment. Then, same liquidation process. Liquidator shall verify the claims collated during the CIRP, but not submitted during the liquidation process. It was collated during insolvency resolution process, but not submitted till liquidation. So in that case, he can verify that claim. Liquidator has the power to verify that claim. They have brought in new provision. But what is the time limit? Within 30 days from the last date of receipt of claim. Okay, that is one additional time point that they have brought in liquidation process. So these are the provisions applicable, newly applicable for May 23. Okay, so, questions may be asked. However, in RTP, they have also brought in these things. These are already there. These were already there. Rule 4 omitted. Then foreign company related 387 to 392 prospectus provisions are not applicable to foreign companies or company incorporated outside India who are allotting securities in IFSC. In that case, they need not comply with these provisions. That was already there. Then electronic mode in foreign company definition does not include electronic based offering of securities, subscription thereof, or listing of securities in IFSC. That even though it is done in India, that will not be constituted as electronic mode. Okay, can be asked in the exam, whether that constitutes foreign company or not. So this will not constitute foreign company because this is not electronic mode. Then additional exemption to write exam, independent directors data bank exam, certain government employees having certain experience, then advocate, chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary in practice, 10 years. They are exempted. Nidhi rules, as I said, amendment was done in April itself, which was applicable for November. However, since I have brought it in the RTP, I have again brought in the entire Nidhi rules have been brought in here. Those are highlighted in bold and italics. Those were the amendments that were made. Okay, so just to look into these amendments, or just look into this material, Nidhi company would be done. Nidhi company chapter would be completed. And lastly, we have amendments in LODR, SEBI. Applicability of LODR, earlier it was an institutional trading platform. They have changed the name to Innovators Growth Platform. Then earlier they said non-convertible debt security, redeemable preference, etc. Now they are just telling non-convertible securities. All types of securities are covered, right? And risk management committee related, those limits have been changed. For that, summary has been given. So just to look into the summary, all 4 committees are taken care. Audit committee, NRC, stakeholders relationship committee, and risk management committee. In that, risk management committee has undergone changes. Then with regard to time limits for quarterly and annual compliance, quarterly compliance report, earlier it was 15 days, within 15 days from the end of the quarter. Now it is 21 days from the end of the quarter. Then prior intimation of board meeting related to bonus issue. Now no condition. Earlier it said where such proposal is communicated to the board of directors as a part of agenda paper. No, whether it is communicated or not. Declaration of bonus securities within 2 working days. Before 2 working days, you have to intimate the stock exchange. That's all. These are the summaries of whatever which is there in the RTP. Now, the last part, we'll just look into the finishing touch. Have positive attitude and mindset. Always be positive. Don't panic. Even if you're not understanding, not getting the answer, nothing to worry. You have to just sit there, calm yourselves. Definitely you will get to, because you have put in all the efforts. You have studied for so long. So obviously you are bound to know the answer. It's only at that particular point you have to remember it. So for that, you have to be calm. You have to free your mind from all other uncertainties, right? So don't panic in the exam. Don't worry about result. It will be taken care. So you have put in all the efforts. You will definitely get through. So what we can do today, timetable I'll not give. What are the chapters that you have to read, when you will read, etc. That definitely it's your convenience. Which are the chapters that you are confident of? Obviously, you can plan and accordingly decide. However, today you can cover some simple topics and easy topics, so that you need not have so much of focus today, and so that you can have a good sleep today, and tomorrow morning afresh you can start with the standard topics. So don't wish for it, work for it, right? You have to bang the door. It's not that door will open for you. Bang it open. Obviously it will obviously open, right? So we need not worry about it. Work for it. Definitely it will happen. Believe in yourselves. You become what you believe. If you believe that you will clear, 100% you will clear, because we have put in our efforts. And more importantly, for the last so many months, we have put in our efforts, right? It's a matter of another 10 more days. May 17th is our last exam, right? So it's a matter of 10 more days. We are very close to the victory. Don't dare give up now. Next 10 days, whatever happens, whatever it is, what we have to do, just focus on putting our efforts. So next 10 days, if we put in our efforts, our entire life is taken care. So put in your efforts for the next 10 days, how much ever is possible, 100%, 110, 120%, you can do it. So repeat after me, everyone. I can do this. With this, I would like to wish everyone all the very best. Each one of you definitely will come out with flying colors. Okay, just focus on the process that we have to follow. Those important chapters that we have to focus on. It will happen. Definitely it will happen. Okay. Any specific points, any points that we have to discuss? No. Okay, right then. Good to go. So we'll not waste time. We have to prepare, right? So we'll conclude the session. Thank you guys. Once again, all the very best.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.